This is Ryan Elliott for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. I'd like to be joined by featherweight prospect Victor El Tornado Morales Jr. today. Victor, thank you for speaking to me. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you during all this coronavirus and everything on that side of the pond? On this side of the pond, it seems like it's slowly getting better.
Yeah, we're getting back in the swing of things over here too, and the boxing's slowly returning. We haven't had any shows here, but in your part of the world, we have. With that in mind, have you been managing to keep busy and stay ready for when that time does where the phone rings?
Oh, when the phone rings, I'm there. I'm ready to fight. I mean, if they give me a, whatever notice, I'm ready. I can get in the ring right now, honestly.
Has your sort of preparation and your training been affected in any way? Have you had to maybe hold back on sparring a little bit? How things changed for you during this time?
Well, during this time, everything has changed. Gym's closing. Luckily, my dad is my coach, so I get that work at home. The sparring stopped for a little while. I just got back into sparring about 2 weeks ago, and we're getting there. I'm ready. I've been ready. It's just the sparring is the only thing that I haven't done that I wasn't doing in that whole time since February, I guess. And but we're getting back into the things, and I'm ready to go whenever they call.
Now, as I said to you, boxing is slowly making its way back. There's been a few top-ranked shows in Las Vegas over the last few days. Golden Boy have started putting a few dates out there as well. That in mind, are you expecting that phone call to be imminent? Do you think you'll be out in the next sort of couple months?
Oh, absolutely. We're looking at. I'm probably going to be fighting in the beginning of August, whenever that show is going to be. That's probably the soonest I can get back in. But like I said, I'm ready to go.
Now, Victor, while we had the time today, I wanted to talk a bit more about your backstory and introduce you to our British audience. Well, we've got the time. We've had you on the channel a couple of times when we've seen you in Vegas, but we've never really gone too in-depth with you. Now, I just wanted to take it way back to when you were a youngster. You were boxing from a young age, but even before that, you were fighting. I was reading about your remarkable journey you had as a child. You had a spinal tap performed as a kid. You had to learn to walk again and go for a complete reset,
Yep.
basically. Do you remember much, if anything, from that time, the difficulties you had?
Not too much because I was so young, but I do remember having to just being confused on why I couldn't walk, and having to crawl most places, and then you're just slowly getting back to the point where I was able to run around again. Because before that had happened, I'd been able to run around. We have trails where I'm from, and I used to hop all the way up them, like 4 or 5 different miles, up them. And then this happened, and then I had to relearn. But I just remember being confused at that time, um, on why I wasn't able to walk, and that's what I remember from that.
3 years on from that remarkable journey to learning to walk again, learning to run again, getting out and about, 3 years later, you follow your dad into the boxing gym. How quickly did you get that bug following your dad, watching him training there and getting in there yourself? Was that you hooked instantly the second you went down there?
Yeah, I guess I was just instantly hooked. He went in there, and I followed him in. I didn't start at that time. I think I started about 2 years later once I was old enough to start. Um, and I mean, I've been doing it ever since, every day since then. And now it's been 14 years. So it's a good time in the sport.
How do you sum up what boxing means to your family? Your father was a fighter. You mentioned now he's your trainer as well. You're making your own way, both amateur and now professional. How do you sum up what this sport means to your family?
The sport means everything to my family. It's really brought us all together. Um, I mean, I'm sure we would have been together either way, but it really tied everybody together because all of us have been involved in the sport in some way or another. My dad as a boxer and then coach. My mom even is a USA boxing official for amateur boxing, and then all my brothers box too. So it really was just a family thing, and it still is.
Now, when you started getting into the sport and you were going in and around the gym as a kid, and I could imagine you could never really get too far away from it with your parents there as well. What kind of fighters did you used to watch when you were younger and used to idolize and want to be like when you grew up as well?
It was Oscar De La Hoya. Actually, funny that I actually ended up signing with him. I used to watch Oscar. I even had a life-size cutout of him from one of the Corona sponsor thing. I think one of my aunts gave it to me because they were also a big Oscar De La Hoya fan. And I had a cutout that would just sit in my room. And my parents' room was right next to mine. So when my mom would leave to go to work early in the morning, it would freak her out because it looked like there was a man standing over me in my bed.
Does the cutout Oscar De La Hoya still live on? Do you still have that hidden away somewhere?
No, I got rid of that. Once we moved, it was up. It ended up falling over and couldn't stand up anymore. So then I hung it on the wall, and then eventually it just got thrown out.
Now, as you progressed sort of with your boxing from going in there as a kid, you traveled all over as an amateur, won all sorts of accolades. You couldn't go to the Olympic trials. I think it was 11 days too young you were. Was that something
Yep.
that you were aware of for a long time, that you weren't be able to go? When did you sort of realize that wasn't going to be happening?
That was my goal, was to go to the Olympic trials in 2016 and be on the Olympic team. Those were all goals that I had all the way up until 2 years before the trials. So up until I was, that age, that's when they changed the age requirement from 18 to 34. They changed it to 19 to 40, making me the 11 days too young to even qualify for the trials. And I found that out about 2 years before the trials. So that was all that time that I had been spending hoping that I would get that shot. And it was kind of just taken away right at the very end. But I'm a very strong believer in everything happens for a reason. Who knows if I would have had to wait another 4 years, if I was even going to make the trials due to all the politics, everything that's going on. It's just not something that was guaranteed to me. So that's why we took the step to just turn pro once I turned 18, after I had gone through a bunch of tournaments that I wanted to get through, and then I just turned pro.
Now, someone who went through something very similar, your old teammate and friend Devin Haney, he took a similar route to yourself. He could no longer go to the Olympics. He turned professional too. In hindsight, when you look back at your decision not to wait for Tokyo, which has now been pushed back a year, and you mentioned there's no way to know what would have happened anyway, how grateful are you that you made that decision to just go with it, looking at how far you've progressed as a professional in that time?
Oh, I'm absolutely glad that we all made that decision, because it wasn't just me. It was my family, my dad, my coaches, everyone that was behind me, that was kind of like a sit down, let's talk about this. And they say, yep, let's do this thing. So we did it. Like I said, I believe in everything happens for a reason. Look what happened. It got pushed back, and then I would have to wait probably another year, or who knows when they're going to do it. I mean, we would have to just wait again. And, everything happens for a reason. Like I said, I'll keep saying that. And that's what I've always said.
You turned over instead, you get well under your way. And then I think it was around August last year, you sign your dream deal. You signed with Golden Boy. You wanted to sign with Golden Boy when you were younger. That was a dream, even from having cardboard cutouts of Oscar De La Hoya knocking around in your house. Explain to me, if you can, that feeling of signing the contract that you dreamed of signing since before you'd even turned professional. What was that moment like for you and your family as well?
It was a dream come true. Not just for me, not even just from my family. I'm the only person from the Pacific Northwest part of our country that's signed with a major promoter like that. So it doesn't put just me and my family. It puts the gym that I go to, the state that I'm from, and the area that I'm from on the map, because our area is not boxing. It's not very popular with boxing. It's more wrestling, MMA on this side. So there's not much boxing on the Pacific Northwest side, which is why I have to travel to LA to get training and sparring. But yeah, like I said, that's yeah.
What was it that they told you and they promised you that made you, so sure this was the right deal and made you ready to take that next step with Golden Boy? What was it during those talks?
Well, there was plenty of talks with them and other promoters too, and I felt the best fit for me was Golden Boy. I had the chance to go with Top Rank, with Shawn Porter's promotions, and it just didn't make sense for me. I felt that Oscar and Golden Boy, they pushed their Mexican American fighters a lot better than they did, and it just worked out for us that we signed with them.
Now, you're still young, you're still learning. That said, how fast do you want to be moved in the professional ranks under the guidance of Golden Boy? Once things get back underway, is it something you've thought about, how fast you want to move through the ranks?
I'm taking every fight one fight at a time. We're getting better and better every time. If they want to put me in there with whoever, it doesn't really matter to me, honestly. I'm ready for anybody, and I'm ready to go out and show that that I'm willing to fight anybody and go out and win, and not just fight anybody, but go out and win in impressive victories. So it's how fast we move. It's how fast they want to push me, and I'm willing to go as fast as they want me to.
It's interesting dynamic at the minute in the featherweight division. We had Shakur Stevenson fighting up at Super Feather the other night, testing the waters up there. We don't know whether he's going to come back or not. That's an old amateur foe of yours. You fought him on a couple of occasions. Has that been in the back of your mind since you turned professional that eventually those paths will cross again?
That's it. I knew, and I always said it, that's okay. He beat me in the amateurs, but I'm going to beat him when it counts. Now, if that would have been the Olympic trials, if that would have been now in the pros, who knows? But now that we're in the pros, I feel like we're going to go out and give him a run for his money for sure. I've been saying it, like I said, I'm going to beat him when the time matters, when the time comes. So we're just waiting for that shot now.
When you look at that featherweight division, like I mentioned, Shakur's there for now. He hasn't officially vacated and moved up yet. You've got the likes of Josh Warrington from my side of the pond. You've got Gary Russell Jr. When you look at what's ahead of you, who do you see as the best fighter in your division right now? Who's number one?
I feel either, Gary Russell Jr. or even Shakur Stevenson. Those are probably the two best in the division. They're the smartest in the division, and that's a dangerous combination, is being the smarter one in the ring that wins you fights.
We've had a lot of talk over here about Josh Warrington potentially facing Shakur Stevenson. Shakur has made a lot of noise about wanting that fight for a long time. It didn't come to fruition. We do think it could still happen at some point. From what you've just told me there about who you see as the best, do you give Shakur the edge if that fight were to take place in a unification clash at some point?
I do, absolutely, and it just comes down to timing and the way he fights. Styles make fights, and he'll turn whatever fight into his fight. He has the timing. He has what it takes to beat Josh Warrington, I think.
Now, something I wanted to ask you about, Victor, you mentioned him earlier on. Shawn Porter has been a big influence on you. He's always spoken very highly of you. He's even signed you, sparred with you, all sorts. Could you, if you can, sum up the influence that Shawn Porter's had on yourself over the years?
Oh, Shawn has been amazing over the years. We met him and his dad back at the Wild Card in 2012, I think, or 2010. And that was back when he was sparring with Pacquiao and doing all the training with them. We stayed in contact constantly, and they always showed up at all my national tournaments, regional tournaments, to kind of be there, support, give me tips and different things. Like I said, he's a big reason why I was able to get as far as I did with certain things that I knew through tournaments that we went through and coming through the pros. They were a big influence on me and my dad because they are also father-son.
What does that mean to you as a teenager, this amateur kid that's traveling the circuit and winning these accolades, that Shawn Porter, big star in America, is coming out there and showing support and showing love at such an early stage of your career as well? That must mean a lot.
It meant everything, especially being that young. But it actually helped me because it put pressure on me, but I was able to manage that pressure. And, like I said, those guys were great, and, everything was good with them.
Now, just to finish with yourself, a big thing for a lot of boxers is visualization, thinking about that end goal. When you think about that, what is the end goal for yourself? What do you envisage yourself achieving in the sport? What would you be happy with achieving in the sport and being able to walk away in years to come?
I'd be happy to be able to come out and be able to speak to my kids and end on the right, on my terms. That was one thing that my dad always taught me, is we don't go in there to take punches for no reason. He wants me to be able to speak with my kids and go out when I want to go out, when I want to retire. And that's one thing that I took from Andre Ward. I mean, he ended his career at the top and didn't have to come back. And that is one of the reasons that I follow him, and he inspires me so much, is because he ended on his own terms at the very top, undefeated. I mean, what else could you ask for?
We are based in the UK. There'll be a lot of British boxing fans watching this. Is it in your ambition at some point in the professional ranks to do what a lot of other great American fighters have done and go and fight abroad and experience the fans in another part of the world, such as the UK?
Absolutely. I would definitely love to travel across the pond, especially because I know those stadiums are a lot bigger. I mean, they probably hold 5, to 6 times more than ours do. And it would be a pleasure to go over there, because I know that some some of the audience gets into the fight. Whether you say don't let the audience into the fight and don't let them dictate the fight, there's always a little bit of audience in that fight, no matter who it is. So absolutely, I would love to travel across the pond.
All right, Victor, I've kept you for just over 20 minutes, I believe it is, so I'm not going to keep you any longer. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to Boxing Social today. Good luck with everything. I'm sure when you have fight news, we'll catch you very soon, okay?
And you have a good one.